Hey horror fans, welcome to episode 64 of Funny Book Splatter, a horror comics podcast brought to you by HorrorTalk.com. I am your host, James Ferguson. I have got my second return guest this week with Michael R. Martin, the writer of the incredible vampire comic Blood and Dust. Michael was one of the first guests on the show, appearing way back in episode number 9. Since then, he's successfully funded the second volume of Blood and Dust on Kickstarter, and he's working on the next volume now. The book is a crazy new take on the vampire mythos, and it is some great stuff. You can buy both volumes of Blood and Dust at the official site bloodanddustcomic.com. If you want to try the comic out first, sign up for Michael's newsletter at the same site, and you'll get a PDF of the first issue for free. You can also find Michael online on Facebook at facebook.com/bloodanddustcomic or on Twitter at bloodanddust. In other news, former guest Ryan K. Lindsay has a Kickstarter campaign running for the digital omnibus of Headspace. The series is a great read and follows a sheriff trapped inside the mind of a killer. Some awesome stuff. The book is over 200 pages with bonus content. You can get it for the low price of $5 Australian. Also, past guest Joseph Oliveira is back on Kickstarter to fund the release of Ghost Island number 3. This is the series described as Jurassic Park, but with ghosts. I'm definitely looking forward to where this comic goes next. Alright, that is it for the news and updates. Now let's dive into episode 64 of Funny Book Splatter with my guest, Michael R. Martin. Alright, what we were just chatting with a second there was saying, like, look, you were one of the first guests of the show, I think in the single digits in terms of episode numbers, and when we had spoken at the time, you were in between Volume 1 of Blood and Dust and Volume 2. It wasn't, you didn't make a Kickstarter or anything yet. The book was kind of in process. And now, I have both volumes proudly displayed on my shelf. So if you had to, let's start first of just describing the book. So if you had to describe Blood and Dust to someone on the convention floor, how would you pitch the book to someone?
So on the convention, and before I do that though, thanks for having me back.
Dude, you're more than welcome. Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and it's awesome. I chase Dirk Manning, which I feel like is my whole life now as I'm trying to chase Dirk. Catch up and try and catch up to him at some point.
He's a tough one to catch up to. I mean, he's one of the hardest working men in this industry.
I know, it's insane, but I have role models, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, into the pitch for Blood and Dust. So, what I tell people is the story of the first American vampire. There's no romance, there's no love stories. It's just an angry old man who's got a 6, an 8, and a 10-year-old that don't grow up and don't mature, and their crazy mom that he keeps chained up in the attic.
Yeah, that little bit at the end, it's like, okay, like, tell me more about that. That crazy mom really gets a lot of time to shine in that second volume. I think the first volume you get introduced to Judd Glennie, the main American vampire that you talk about, and then you kind of get an idea of who he is, what he's doing, and then this second volume though just like blows it out of the water in terms of just like, oh, you thought it was one thing, and here it's a completely different thing. Still very much like vampires and family and stuff like that, but very interesting new take on it. I'm curious as to where, and I want to be conscious of how much you don't want to spoil in this environment too, but it's not your typical vampire. And I really liked that idea.
Yeah, that was a big piece of what we really wanted to do when we started all this. When Adam and I kind of put it all together and started thinking about the story, we wanted to tell a vampire story. Vampire stories are very near and dear to my heart, and but we wanted to do something different. A lot of the traditional tropes and things like that of, the master vampire and how they're turned and how they're made and those types of things, are all awesome, and they've been part of so many things, but we wanted to try and do something different. I made a statement for years, man, say whatever you want, about Stephanie Meyer in Twilight, man, but she put a mark on it.
Yeah.
And it's because she did something completely different. And so that's kind of what we wanted to do, but not make them, glitter balls, but, take something that, cause that's the thing. And that's what at some point people are going to catch on to as I expand out and kind of grow the story, is you'll see a lot of that traditional vampire stuff that you don't see now is a part of it. It's just an extended different part of it.
Okay.
So I took it a little different.
Yeah, no, it's a good different, and I like that what you pointed out in terms of the Twilight stuff, because I feel like that is something that, it was the butt of the joke for about like 10 years, and no like hardcore horror fan took it seriously, and we understand that, but like it put vampires on the map in a way that hadn't been done for years, and you got all these other, look at all the things that kind of spun out of, I don't know if spun out of is the right term, but like in terms of like things that kind of got more airplay than they probably should have under normal circumstances. So you had things like True Blood, which blew up on HBO. HBO had a show all about vampires for like 6 or 7 years. It's like, that's a big deal, and like they popped up in all these other areas of pop culture partly because of that.
Yeah, and I, when you look at it, and it wasn't just Twilight that did it. I mean, there was so many things, Buffy, which was a great version of how you make things different, but, it's been for a while that, you fall in love with vampires, and that was kind of one of our first premises that we had was, I don't fall in love with a pig or a cow or a chicken. Mm-hmm. Why would I fall in love with a blood sack? And so that's kind of one of the things that we remain very true to is, you're never going to see this love story play out. Judd's never going to be pining, or some other person that's never going to be a part of this. Because I wanted to take it back to the things that terrified me. And we wanted to bring back kind of a badass kind of character, somebody that there are real people that you meet in life that you're like, that motherfucker scares me.
Yeah, that's certainly, Judd Glennie definitely fits that description.
Yeah, thank you. That's kind of the whole thing, man, that's exactly what I wanted to bring, man. You don't want to cuddle, or you don't want to, there is no getting to know this dude. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, you're cool over there. Thank you.
He is like, what's interesting with him too, it's like, while he is this kind of gruff exterior and like, very like prickly kind of personality, but like you can't help but be intrigued by him. It's like he's almost like the cool kid that it's like, oh, like he's gonna blow me off, but like I really want to get to know him. I really want to like be his friend, and it's just like that's never gonna happen. But like it makes for an interesting thing to watch as a reader, to be able to look at it and be like, okay, there's something going on here, and I need to understand what his story is, and that's helpful in that he's the main character of the book, so that certainly works out.
Oh, good. Yeah. I think the mission accomplished. Yeah. You wanted to know more. Sweet.
But I think he's got some heart to him, which you reveal in in the second volume, that it's like, oh, like this is kind of where he came from. This is, well, you get to an extent about like what his real backstory is, and it's shown in a way that like isn't just like, well, back in 19 this is how all this came down. It's like, no, it's all organic to the story, comes through really well, and it's like, oh, that's why this guy's such an asshole now, is because of all the shit he went through in his like real life, and then his vampire life, and then his like other vampire life. It's like there's all these like facets to him. He's like an onion in that case.
And I think that's kind of the thing for character development, which is kind of a huge piece for me. We didn't really want to explain it all. The whole first volume, all you get is dropped into a story going on, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And, so revealing kind of how they came to be, organically was really important. And showing that, the thing is, for Judd, is everything that's happened to him has been his choice. And they were all choices that he made kind of out of a hope of being good. Or because some horrible shit happened, and, he dealt with it poorly. And I think that we all can understand that. I think all of us really understand. I mean, when the shittiest things in life happen, and I mean, we're talking the absolute shittiest things that could possibly happen to anybody. I mean, for me, it would be losing my family. When that happens, people change and they make really, really poor decisions. And Judd is what happens to somebody that makes poor decisions and then has a supernatural impact that comes along with it along the way.
I'm only thinking about this because I watched this movie today for the first time, but in terms of, something horrible happening and you making a bad decision, I watched the movie Pumpkinhead today, for the first time.
You're saying it was a bad decision?
No, that wasn't a bad. It was fine. Like, look, it was directed by Stan Winston. Like, the effects were phenomenal. The story was okay, but like the idea there is like, all right, like something. It's not spoiling anything. The movie's been out for 30 plus years now, but the guy Lance Henriksen's kid dies, and he's like, I'm gonna get vengeance on these people now, and summons up the Pumpkinhead to fucking murder everybody. And it's like, and then he regrets this. It's like this horrible decision that he makes, and it's like, oh, like, yeah, you were pushed this, you made this decision in, a moment of grief, of mourning, like the loss that you just went through has not totally, like, you haven't had a chance to accept it yet, and now this is what's going to happen. Lots more people are going to die, and things are going to get a lot worse than before they get better. And it's like, yeah, like that happens. Like you could see that kind of emotion come through, and like that's what's I think really heartbreaking about Judd Glennie's story, because it's like he almost wanted to like make amends in some cases. Like, if I could do this one good thing, I could make up for one of the shitty things that I've done in my life. And then it just goes horribly wrong. Like, it just keeps getting worse. This poor guy.
Yep. Yeah, that is exactly it. I mean, in a way, in another Punisher, it's a very Punisher story. It's one bad day.
Yeah.
The thing is, and we'll see later, but Judd was never really a good guy. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy, but he didn't acquire, it's, a little bit of whatever that damn movie had taken, he didn't acquire his particular set of skills before he was turned, because he was a good man, but he had found that place in peace. He did have that place, and they took it from him.
Now, what is it about a character like that pulls you in as a creator then? So it's like, this is not, I imagine that he's not necessarily an easy character to write because of the horrible things he's done, the things that he's been through, the pain that he's suffered. It has to be like a tough mindset to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets really weird sometimes. I mean, I've literally walked out of my office in tears. I'm like, I am fucking horrible. I mean, really, that's not a joke. I'm like, I am the worst fucking person ever. To like think of this shit and then make it happen and do this to these people is like, Jesus, I would be an awful god. But in a way also, it's also actually very easy to write because the whole anger and vengefulness and rage, that ain't far beneath the surface. So it doesn't take much to tap into it, but it's a disturbing part to talk to for a while.
Yeah. How is your kind of creative process? So you Blood and Dust you co-created with was it Adam?
Adam
so
Warndale.
how do you guys collaborate? Was it just a matter of getting the ideas together and then do you co-write the book?
Yeah, man. In the first volume, Life and Death of Judd Glennie, we wrote those 3 issues together. We basically sat around in rooms and used index cards and kind of plotted out how everything would be, and then kind of went back and forth with it. And we wrote those first 3 years ago, before we got published and picked up and everything. And then, when it came around time to work on volume 2, we had talked through a lot of ideas. I mean, we had a lot of stuff that we had already talked through and knew, and then we kind of sat down and had a little bit of a meeting for, kind of what we wanted to get to, but we never sat down and wrote anything together on that one. So, I wrote it and then shot it over to Adam, and he kind of, went through some edits and asked some questions and, gave some, editorial input. And, but for, that was the process for these. And, because it just kind of finished out that original arc that we had originally kind of planned. Everything kind of changed a lot, obviously, over the years. I mean, there were moments where I would be messaging Adam and be like, yeah, that all completely just changed. Because it's as everything's kind of going on. But, that's how we did all of that. And, for, forthcoming stuff, I'm pretty much just kind of, carrying on for all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my questions. Certainly, is what's next in the Blood and Dust saga? Now that Volume 2 is safely under your belt, and it leaves off at such an awesome point. Like where do you possibly go from here? And please just tell me there's so much more to come.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there is. We've, the next one, Volume 3 is the Ballad of Preacher Man and Law Dog. And, you saw them in Volume 2, and you kind of saw the situation they're in, and kind of see how horribly they're treated. And so we're going to tell the story of how they came to be, and also kind of tell, more history of, characters like Emmett, that you'll find. And so that one's more back in time, and then Volume 4 is where I'm going to pick up with what happened to Ruth, and that's the life and death of Sadie Mae Kellum. So that's somebody else we alluded to in Volume 2.
How far ahead have you planned?
And then there's tons more.
Good. So I was just going to ask you, how far ahead have you planned out the series?
Quite a ways. I even think I have the end.
Wow.
I'm not sure. It's the end. But I think it would be a damn good place to make it the end. And just, all good things in life, man. I love these stories, but all good things. And I think bringing it full circle and closing it out would be pretty damn dope.
Yeah, certainly. And would you now? This is something I'll ask, and we could cut it out if you don't want to talk about it. But moving the first volume was published through Action Lab. You moved the second volume into to release it yourself through Kickstarter. Can you comment on that at all in terms of like that move or that kind of decision?
Yeah. At the end of the day, man, the thing about this is a very personal thing for me. I'm not someone who's trying, I joke about Dirk, but Dirk's like a crazy mad worker, and, this is his life. I have a lot of other things going on. So comics to me is I'm kind of taking what I call like an artisan approach to it, which is like the dumbest way I could possibly say it out loud. But it is. It's just, I really am working on this book. I've got, a couple other small things that I'm starting to kind of kick through and enjoy. But I want to do it all under my banner now, because if you're not willing to work as hard as I am, and you're not as passionate, and you don't believe in what I do and the work that my team has done, you don't get to play with my ball. And so that's kind of how that really went down, when it came time to, I really wasn't really happy with how the first release went. I had some discussions with them and found out that they never actually read my book. And it's awful hard for you to, promote and try and get my book out there and get sales if, people haven't read the goddamn thing. And I took personal offense to that, quite honestly. So, when it came time for Volume 2 and they offered me to do it digital only and with a chance of maybe going to a trade, they have first look. That was part of the contract. They gave me the first look. I told them no, and then I asked them how much, what's it going to take to get my property back? They told me buy 1,600 copies from Diamond, and I told them done.
Wow.
And so now I have all my shit back.
There you go. Yeah, well, look, it's so far so good in terms of, like, you were able to flip that around, make a volume 2, went straight to graphic novel, and you have that physical copy you can hold in your hands. So, I mean, like, look, I think, you know, that's a publisher, they're still doing some good things. I was just curious how everything kind of, like, fell out there. And it looks like, yeah, like some things just might not have aligned on their side. I mean, the not reading the book thing is questionable, but, you know, I get that it's like, okay, well, like they have to make a decision based off of their side, as well. And I'm not saying all this to play like devil's advocate. I'm just saying, well, yeah, okay, they have to figure out what's best for them. And it's like, they have their own priorities with other stuff too. But like you said, this is your baby, you know, like this is what you want to get out there in the world, and you're going to put 100% and, you know, whatever, 110%, 1,000,000% into this because this is what you're going to do. And it's like, instead of hoping someone else pays some attention to it, you're able to pay all of your attention to it. And I think that kind of comes through in terms of, like, the care that's ultimately put into the project.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and you know, please don't get me wrong. You know, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to get out there. I mean, you would have never known about me unless it had been for them. We wouldn't have met, you know, in New York at the table if they hadn't been. I'm very grateful for what the opportunity. They got some great creators over there. They got a couple of really great folks that are on staff that are doing way too many jobs, you know, because they just have so many hats they have to wear. So, you know, totally understand and appreciate where they are, and you know, I've wished them nothing but well on this. But you know, if I'm asked directly, I'm honest. And the simple fact of the matter is, man, if you're a publisher, you're representing somebody, you flat out tell me to my face you haven't read it, yeah, we're not going to have a good relationship from there. But you know, I appreciate it. And like I said, when I do what I do, and that's kind of the cool thing is when you look in the volume 1 you got, which is the Action Lab, when you got your Kickstarter fulfilled, you know, and you look at the volume 2 and you compare, you know, the two when it comes to quality and build and how the book's put together, I think you can kind of tell there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, and look, again, it's your personal touch to that as well, being able to, like, this is what I want. Like, you kind of get to hand select every single piece. But I mean, that also comes with a positive and negative, because that now, you know, you're the one having to make all of those decisions in terms of, like, all right, I got to go out and find a printer. I got to look at different types of paper and all this other stuff, where it's like, I don't know different kinds of paper. Like, you know, like, I don't know where to start with that kind of stuff. They make more than one. Like, what is that?
Dude, I'll tell you, but that's been the whole story of me doing comics, man. From the very beginning. I was just telling a guy this, like, last weekend. I was doing a shop appearance, and you know, he's like, well, I don't know how to do it. I'm like, look, I just turned around because he was talking to somebody else. I'm like, look, man, 10 years ago, Adam and I didn't know how to write a script. You know, we looked it up online. Our first script was 21 pages because we didn't know it should be even numbered.
Good point.
You know,
that's a good tip.
Yeah, and that's seriously it, man. I have learned from the day one that we started writing the first script to now how to build covers, how to import from China, how to make a print. I mean, how to write contracts. It is a ridiculously long list of the things that I've had to learn in order to get this book out. And it just added to it. Now, on the flip side of it, now I have all this knowledge. What do I do with it? And that's where I start getting dangerous, because I'm like, well, I could do more of this. God damn it. You know, but it's a continuous learning thing, but it's also a passion. You know, I mean, going back to the shittiest term ever of artisanal comics, I guess, because I'm going to stick to that shit.
It sounds quite fancy, I have to say.
It should. Well, that's the thing. Here's the deal, and for everybody listening, here's what every independent creator needs, and this is no shit. Mock everybody as much as you want, and mock beards and horrible dressing and everything else, but I need freaking comic book hipsters. I need people that want shit that's cool before it is cool. And that's kind of who I'm going for. I'm not sending stuff out to printers to make prints anymore. I hand make my prints with my art printer that I mat and put them in backing boards and a whole thing like that, because I want to give you something really personal from me and something that's from my book, and this is all family, and that's what I emphasize in the messaging that I send to the fans and newsletters, and the people that love this and the people that support it, people like you and that gave me such a great review on everything. It's you guys are who I make this for, and so I want everything to be really personal and as great as I can make it. Well, the only way I can honestly do that is if I just do it all myself.
Well, so I can speak from experience in that I did back the Kickstarter, and the box of stuff I got was just, like, I was blown away by like the amount of things. It was like I got both. I backed for both books. I got a T-shirt. I got like a bag full of pins that I'm like, I don't even know where I'm gonna put all these just yet. But I'm like, look at all these. Like, these are awesome. Like, I'm like, and then, like, time had passed since like the campaign ran to when the thing ultimately gets fulfilled. So like I forgot like some of like the stretch goals and things like that get added onto it. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I got a shitload of buttons. I got this cool I got an awesome print that like is like a nice, like, quality print too, that it wasn't like just something that was just like printed out like on like the equivalent of like the board that goes into a comic book bag. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do with all this stuff just yet, but like, this is all, like, I already wore the T-shirt out, and like, it was like this. It was a badass looking T-shirt, so I'm like, yeah, like, this is right. Like, this is that kind of quality comes into it. And was this your first experience with Kickstarter, or have you used the platform before?
It was once again, there's another story. The very first one that we did was in 2014. That was under Adam's account. And so we did our very first one then, and that's how we got our first black and white book out that had Rudy Vasquez doing the art. So it's even more different than the two you've seen. We fulfilled that. That's how we had our first books to start selling at our first con in Tucson in 2014. We tried to do another Kickstarter after we got picked up from Action Lab to try and pay for the issues, and did not make it. I went in and pulled it down early because we were nowhere even remotely close, and we weren't really getting a whole lot of pull around it. So this was going back to it, and believe me, man, Kickstarter is the thing that like makes me the most sick about doing anything. It really does, man. I mean, I've likened it forever to going out there and shaking my ass on the digital highway, in hot pants. Come on, baby, you want some of this hot comic love? Come on, you want some of this? You want some of this.
Well, I mean, that's certainly one way to look at it, I guess. It can be just a 30-day long ass shaking, just trying to get that money in to print your comic book. It really is. I twerked my ass off. I twerked like a motherfucker on fire. For 30 fucking days. But ultimately, though, it paid off in that, like, you hit the goal. The book is printed. But like, I guess the question there is, well, will you do it again when it comes time to make the next one, or are you going to look for other avenues to publish the book?
No, yeah, I'll do it again. Well, here's the thing, man. I mean, I'll be honest. I really do believe it is the new model. I have enough people that I know, that I follow and I'm friends with, that have made this a very sustainable, realistic way of getting your work out there. It's just got to be done right. Going back to the Kickstarter, talking about your rewards and stuff, we barely made our $5,000 goal, barely. So there were really no stretch goals, and there was nothing involved in any of that. I included, packs of stuff for people, to say thank you, because to me, you paid a lot for just a couple of books. A lot of these people had no idea who I was, or, had ever read the first volume or anything like that. So to me, it was I just had to include extra stuff as a thank you. Once again, I make all that stuff myself anyway. So, it's just me and my wife cranking out stuff going, here, have pins. Thank you. But it is a new model, man. And the first one is always the hardest and the longest to get to. But, I know a lot of people, and here's the worst, absolute worst one you can say out loud, because you should never ever try and compare yourself to the dude, because 25 years is a lot of time to build a fan base. But Brian Pulido is killing Kickstarter with Lady Death.
It's nuts. That guy, I turned my editor onto it. He barely reads comics, but he was like, you get how much stuff in this box? Like you back for the comic, and you just get he just keeps throwing things into it. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's one of the first pieces of advice Brian actually gave me. He's like, just give away a lot of shit.
It's not bad. It's not bad advice. I mean, look, we mentioned it before with Dirk Manning. Like his Kickstarters just over deliver like nuts. Like it's all right, you got the book, and so long as you pledge at that level that comes with the book, you get all this extra stuff, and it's the more money comes in, he's I'm just gonna give you more. So it's you want stickers, you want this, you want that. Yeah. Comics Tribe is the same way. They're running one right now for Sync, and it's it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous the amount of stuff that you get for it, and that's the kind of model that I think works best, and why name creators like that are coming back to the Kickstarter platform again and again, because they're finding an audience. They could immediately pre-sell a book that is special and exclusive for that Kickstarter audience, and it becomes this overall kind of experience. And I'm sure, yes, it can be stressful to have to do this 30-day marathon to get the book out, but if you do it right, like you said, if you do it right, then it ends up being worth it, and you hopefully build up that audience then. So then you get more people that are just checking you out because, hey, this looked cool, I want to check out this book, and then they come back again and again and again, and hopefully, the next time you do it, you not only breeze past your goal, but you end up going even farther than that, because everyone would have had time to digest the book, enjoy, recognize, all right, this is a guy I didn't know. He not only delivered, but he did it in a timely fashion, over-delivered in terms of the stuff in the box or what I was expecting. Yeah, I'll back this again, or yes, I will back this and increase my pledge because of it.
And that's exactly it. I mean, and that's why that model can work. And, unfortunately, it's got a stigma around it, and it's got a lot of, unfulfilled. Luckily I had, damn near everything completely done by the time we closed. So, really for me, it was just getting everything, off to the printer, once the money came in, getting off to the printer, getting a few other things wrapped up, and then on our way. The problem with that type of model, especially for me, is if I want to do that again, of course I got to put up all the money in the front, to pay the team and all that kind of thing. I know a lot of creators do once we get the Kickstarter, then we pay the team thing, which if you can work that, that's awesome. But I do know that it works better the other way. So, like Tom Hutchison right now, man, he's got a new Kickstarter, from Big Dog Inc. He's got a new Kickstarter up. He funded in, hours. Everybody's funding in hours. My friend Ron Zavala just finished his Kickstarter, I believe, at $46,000 for Patriotica 2. And that's just a comic. That's not a graphic novel. That's not a full book. That's a one-issue comic. So that's the thing, is it is a viable thing. If you're not on Kickstarter, if you're not checking it out, I'm on into board games, and now it's freaking dangerous because those Kickstarters
they're expensive.
Cool. I mean, it's that's awesome. So that's what I mean is it is the new way of doing things, man. We just had a new store shut down here in Phoenix today. And we are comic strong, man. We have a ridiculous amount of stores. We've got some of the best stores in the country here, Drawn to Comics, where I'm doing Free Comic Book Day, and Jesse James Comics, where I was just out a couple of weeks ago. Those two are Eisner nominated regularly for best stores. We're comic strong, but the model's changing, and the more a store relies on, big two and not indie, and not, right now, I'm actually becoming kind of sought after because they're looking for things outside of Diamond Distribution and outside of what they know to kind of bring in some new blood and interest into the shops.
Yeah, and again, you could deliver that kind of stuff to and not only that, but show up there and have that kind of personal experience and just talk to people about how you made your comic, how that stuff came to be, and it's that adds another layer of interest to the whole overall story.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, man, I'll be honest. It depends on the store. If I go into a big 2 store, it is a very long day of not really having a whole lot of folks to talk to, because the clientele there are coming in for superhero comics and things, DC and Marvel. Go to Jesse's. I do much better there. I do great at drawing the comics because they've got a great comic culture there that's looking for, they're my comic hipsters. Yeah. They're looking for that new and difference.
No.
They're big.
Now you mentioned that you did all this. You didn't know how to write a script when you started out. You had to go out there and learn it. Like where did you go to learn those kind of ins and outs of making a comic, of writing a script, kind of like the best ways to kind of put those things together?
Oh man. So writing a script, that was 10 years ago when we started doing that. And there wasn't nearly the type of resources and things available. So, we looked online, picked up, Batman Arkham Asylum edition that I had the script in the back. So, you could go back there and I'm the worst with names. So I hate it when I do this because I can never remember people's names, especially this one, because this one people are going to be like, you're an asshole. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Grant Morrison wrote Arkham Asylum, so I can say that one.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going to explain myself.
Don't worry about it. It happens. I'm not going to fault you about it. Like it's tough. I'm blanking on the artist right now, but that one at least I knew off the top of my head.
And see, I should know it, but screw it. I'm just horrible. But anyway, so the scripts in back of that, and that's what I would do, is just read what other people did. It's just the same as I learned to write prose just by reading a lot. And so you just find the resources you could. It's, like Tone Rodriguez, he's the artist for Volume 2, and he's always encouraging me to sell my scripts at cons, because he's like, man, you write shit in here that nobody gets to see in the comic, and they really need to read that, because you write some fucked up shit that I'm the only person to read.
Yeah, that's the audience of one there. That's like, that's something you include as special stretch goals and things like that down the line about, like, yeah, you want to throw in a couple extra bucks, even a digital copy of it, to throw it out there as saying, yeah, here's the script, here's how we came all this together. You can see that what the process looks like to ultimately get that thing to life.
Yeah, it's the favorite one that he told me about. He's like, it's the scene in the 3rd chapter, it's in the pickup, when they pull Preacher Man and Law Dog out, the way I described the scene on the panel for Baby Hazel is like, she doesn't look cute, she doesn't look adorable, she just looks like a cold, dead little girl.
Oof.
He's like, dude, that's fucked up.
Yeah, man, ouch. But it gets your point across. Like, that's something like, yep, all right, I got that. Look, I'm not the artist, but it's like you could see, like, yeah, all right, I understand what you're going through or going for in terms of tone and everything there. Like, that paints a very specific mental picture. It's a fucked up one, but yeah.
That's kind of been my whole talent, my whole life, is like, I give you the worst fucking visuals ever. It's just something I do well.
Well, like I said, man, so far so good on that mark. But I guess so. Now, where can folks then get Volume 2? So what are the best places for them to pick that up? Because I mean, we've been talking about it for a bit. Like, Volume 2, like, just like I love the first volume of Blood and Dust, but like Volume 2 just like fucking blew it out of the water in terms of like, this is crazy, it's new, it's different, like it's this like bold kind of different take on the vampire mythos that like, this is why I'm like so like fanboying out in terms of like, yes, I need to see more about this stuff, because like this is a really, really cool story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, everything that you can get Blood and Dust is at nightshadecomics.storeenvy.com. And that's my store. Or you can go to Blood and Dust Comics, bloodanddustcomic.com, and there's a link to the store there. But for the most part, those are the only place. There's a few stores around Phoenix that carry it. But really right now, that's the only place. I'm debating on Amazon or not. I keep seeing horror stories about it. And, I'm actually working on putting it into Comixology right now. But so my school.
Yeah, I mean, like the Amazon thing is interesting. Like I don't know how that totally works on the independent front, but I mean, Comixology, it seems like they'll they take a cut of it certainly, but that may be another avenue to explore to just get out, because they seem very creator friendly in getting books onto that platform.
It does. It seems to be pretty decent. I know there are other platforms out there, but as when I asked about my funding from money when it came to the last time it was published, when the accountant came back and said, well, their accounting is wonky. I didn't know that was an official accounting term. It certainly doesn't make me feel good about going down.
Yeah, that's rough. That certainly doesn't fill you with confidence. But yeah, I have seen things like you could serialize it online for things like webtoons and stuff like that. A few past guests have done that with their books, so that way it's like I don't know that model. It seems like it's kind of like a revenue share with the advertising that's shown on those pages. But I don't know how lucrative it is, but it seems like people are going to it over and over again to serialize it. Like I personally can't do webcomics. Like I like to sit down and like just read a PDF and just like go through the whole story all at once. I don't know, for some reason I just can't wrap my head around sitting down. Oh yeah, I got to go through and click through this 22 times in order to read the whole first issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against webcomics. I've certainly bought enough of them and read enough of them, and they're incredibly convenient and nice. It kind of goes back to the whole quality discussion. When I went through the trouble of making everything as nice as I could possibly make it, when you have such incredible work by Tone and by Raymond Lee, who came back to color this one, it is just so absolutely beautiful to look at, and screens don't really do it justice. So, however people want to read it, I'm down. I mean, I also need some money. So, I'm happy to, however you want to consume it, that's on you. But I would say, actually it's a kind of a funny thing. I'm going to be sending out issue 1, to newsletter subscribers, to let people kind of sample it out digitally. And part of the Collectors Corner on Facebook group. It's a really awesome bunch of fans, and some creators and stuff in there. And, those guys are obsessive about variants and things of that nature, and they appreciate quality, and once again, that's kind of who you target. That's why the physical is the nicer piece.
Yeah, well, look, let's plug that real quick, because if you're gonna if people want to try out the first issue of this and you're putting it in the newsletter, where can people sign up for that?
You can sign up for the newsletter at bloodanddustcomic.com. That's where you kind of see my updates. I'm the worst at updating everything because I'm also like one of the busiest people on the planet. At least I feel that way. But that's where I post a lot of updates, and, the newsletter, I'm trying to get better at building that audience and not feeling like I'm intruding by going, hi, I'd like to tell you about what I do.
Well, I think I've
super self-conscious.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on the newsletter thing, because there are some people that do it like really, really well, and like it's regular but not like too in your face. They don't like push all their stuff much, but it's just like when it's done well, it's like when it does come time for you to do that next Kickstarter, I will have felt that I have been along for the process every step of the way, and now it's like, when you hit that launch button, it's like we're all there with you, because like we read your journey, that kind of creative journey to ultimately get this book made. And now it's like, you hear your hardships and your stress about these things and your joy about getting pages in and seeing the artwork. And then it's like, now it's out there in the world, and it's like, hey man, I need your help. And it's like, dude, you've been entertaining me for months on end via, fun stuff and email like this for this time. Like, yeah, I'll throw down money now because I feel like I've joined, again, I've seen you come along. That's the thing. Like, so it's a weird thing. But then I've also seen the complete other side of the spectrum where it's like, the Kickstarter ends and it's like, hey, can you sign up for my newsletter? I'm like, yeah, I'll try it out. And then like I get the newsletter and I'm like, I don't even remember who you were. Like I haven't read your book yet because you haven't sent it out. Like, so I don't care about this just yet. Like you're kind of jumping the gun a little bit there, but you have a body of work now, so you could talk about this kind of stuff, and it's almost like the new blog in that case, where it's like, here's the stuff that's out there. This is how we got to here.
Yeah, and I've heard that over and over. I've done some posts here fairly recently that people have liked, where I kind of talked about the journey. It's kind of similar to the thank you page, I've gotten great response out of it. The only person who it seems like doesn't want to hear about it is me, because I'm like, this is so weird. So I really kind of have to get outside of that part, because you're 100% right. It is talking about your journey and all the stuff. I mean, it's been a hell of a ride, and part of the reason I'm actually like talking about it is to try and inspire other people to do it. Anybody who's gone through like life-changing stuff, I try and kind of reach out to, or people going through struggles like cancer or stuff like that. I always try and kind of chime in and go, look, it's okay, but here's the cool shit that can come out of it. But take advantage of that. If you get a second chance, ride that fucker till it falls. So that's really kind of where I can feel good about when I do it, is if I do that kind of stuff.
Well, and look, based off of not only this conversation, but the first conversation we had on the show, like, your story is insanely inspiring. So it's like, to hear that in, whether it's just listening to this podcast or, reading about it on in your newsletter, your posts like that, like, yeah, like it's inspiring that it's like anyone can do this, and you could, if you have a story, get it out there through hell or high water, tell that story, and that's what you did, basically. It's like you went through some crazy shit and ultimately came out with not one but two really solid, really well done comics, and that's why, like, I'm excited to hear that there's more coming for this. So, like, yeah, man, keep doing it. Like, fuck yeah, just keep doing it. Like, I'm so happy to see that there's more coming.
Thank you. Honestly, that's the kind of stuff that helps so much, man, because when you're a writer and you're sitting in your office, doing your thing, and nobody's around. I watched Seinfeld doing the Cars with Coffee. He talks about comedians, and he's like, the difference between doing stand up and making a movie, stand up, you get your immediate reaction. People are automatically telling you, oh, that's awesome, that's great, we love it, or they're laughing. In a movie, you work your ass off for a year or more, and you have that one opening night where you see the reaction, and that's it. And I forget that I've been doing this for so long in kind of a vacuum that I feel weird about talking about it, because it seems old hat to me, where every person I talk to is like, holy shit, that's new, I've never heard of this. I'm like, fuck, I forgot. So it really is kind of like that. So, it's been really great. The past, month or so, I've been getting people, messaging me and telling me that they really enjoyed it and asked me questions, and it's awesome. And so, yeah, I'm trying to write my ass off, because, Preacher Man and Law Dog needs to get done, and Sadie Mae is like screaming at me, and I'm like, fuck, all right, give me a second.
Yeah, man, get that story out. That's it. So, look, I will assure you, anyone that's listening, that like when the next volume does come out, whether it's through a Kickstarter campaign or what have you, like we're gonna be talking about it, on this show. There'll be a plug at the beginning of the show to mention that, and certainly have more coverage on Horror Talk as well. But I mean, like, yeah, like it's coming, and I'm pumped for it. So, but until then, like, yeah, check out this journey, not only on Blood and Dust and the newsletter, but I guess where else would be the best places for folks to find you online?
You can do Facebook, facebook.com/Blood and Dust Comic. You can always find me on Facebook as well, Michael R. Martin. Instagram, Michael R. Martin 7, I believe, is who I am. I get lost my own self. So those are the main places. I tend to avoid Twitter. I'm not that angry at anything anymore. So those are the best places. But really, I'm trying to kind of be dedicated to my store, nightshadecomics.storeenvy.com. But I'm trying to kind of stay in there. it seems like a new platform launches every day, and then somebody's like, oh, that platform's horrible, and then it crashes and everything else. So, fuck it. You got all my information.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, Facebook. I mean, for better or worse, like, Facebook's still around, but, Ello and Mastodon are still things that it's like, does anyone remember those? Remember Google Plus, guys? Like, that was a thing for a hot minute.
Yeah, exactly. Bring back MySpace.
So it's, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like groups are coming back now as other ways to do it, because pages just kind of didn't do anything. So hopefully in there. Well,
and that's I'm starting to expand my groups for Blood and Dust too. So that's kind of the cool thing is, that's an easier place for people to communicate and see stuff. So that's, you can join that through mine as well. But the hardest thing anymore, really is just getting to people and getting them to check it out, whatever avenue that takes.
Well, look, you're giving the first taste away for free through the newsletter, so it is well worth checking out. So if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a look at the first issue of Blood and Dust, and if that doesn't hook you, I don't know what will. So that's a good place to kind of wrap things up, I think, because it's different. It's a vampire tale that is unlike any other, and like you said, they're not sparkling. There's not a romance in here, but it's like you got some badass vampires in here, and they're doing some crazy shit. So it's a good book, man.
Thank you. It's just to add in the weird plug, because between last time we talked and now, another Vampire Family book came out too, and they seem to have done real well, and you might want to check out ours. So if you liked Redneck, go check out Blood and Dust.
Yeah, there's definitely some, I don't want to say overlap, but like you play in a similar sandbox there in terms of like good, powerful family storytelling, southern setting there, and a whole shitload of vampires. So that is a good point. Yeah, if you like Redneck, it's Blood and Dust. Well, one, you were there first, but it's still yeah.
I didn't want to say it, but thank you.
But yeah, definitely worth checking out. There's more there's enough room out there for more than one southern vampire story. So definitely worth checking out, folks. All right, so Michael, again, absolute pleasure speaking with you here. Thank you very much for chatting with me here on the show. But I think that kind of wraps it up then for this episode of Funny Book Splatter. I have been James Ferguson with my guest Michael R. Martin. You've been listening to Funny Book Splatter, a horror comics podcast brought to you by HorrorTalk.com. We've been bringing you the best in horror since 2002. In addition to comics, we cover movies, TV shows, books, and video games. We've got news, reviews, guest features, interviews, unboxing videos, and much more. Be sure to sign up to Steve's Deals newsletter to increase your horror collection without breaking the bank. Check us out at HorrorTalk.com and at HorrorTalk on Twitter.